Hey guys, welcome to episode number 2 of my YouTube channel. I don't know what I want to call it. I think I might stick with ChrispBTC. I think that could be a cool logo. Let me know what you think. Maybe have some bacon in there with like some heat waves and Bitcoin in there. Anyway, this episode I have Follow My Vote on. They are a voting blockchain technology company, and they are some of the people at the forefront of this process, of this brand new process. And I really enjoy this video, this podcast. We talk about many things like politicians, the challenge for voting, accessibility, privacy for the user, and security, which is most important. So we talk about many other topics too. So I hope you enjoy it. If you do, please like and subscribe. If you'd like to see more about blockchain voting in the process, enjoy.
The time has come to bring voting into the 21st century. Let's be honest, no one likes searching for their polling place, waiting in long lines when they arrive, and when the ballots are cast, can we even be sure they get counted correctly? We can do better. And at Follow My Vote, we've figured out just how to do it. We threw out all preconceived notions about the way voting is done today and imagined how it should be done tomorrow. It was immediately clear that an honest election needs to be verified from end to end, so there was no choice but to bring it online. Leveraging blockchain technology in combination with elliptic curve cryptography, we've broken open the ballot box to allow everyone to count the votes, all without compromising privacy or security. Instead of waiting in line, imagine voting from the comfort of your own home on your own device, and even following your vote into the ballot box to confirm that it was cast as intended and counted as cast. Online voting. You want it, you got it. Finally, online voting. Follow my vote. Pass it on.
Hey guys, Chris here. Today I have Follow My Vote on my channel, and I'm super excited to have them. It's been a long time coming, but everybody lives lives, and it's what better time than now, right? So
Sure.
with me, I have Will, the marketing manager, Nathaniel, the CTO, and Adam, the CEO. Yeah, thanks again, guys, for joining me. I'm super excited to have you on.
Absolutely. We're
Thank
really
you.
excited to be here. Yeah, thank you very much for
Yeah,
having
thank
us.
you.
So the thing that really got me into blockchain voting is this last election, and everybody, you know, there's fraudulent words everywhere. Fraud this, this was fake, that was fake. So I really dove deep into blockchain voting, and I realized nobody is talking about it. Nobody, there's no videos about it. I did find maybe a couple from like maybe 3 years ago, but no recent videos. So I found you guys actually on YouTube, and it was the using of the application. So it's like a step-by-step guide on using your system, your software. So I've been pushing to try to get you guys on, and I'm so glad I got you. So, Adam, what was the push for you to create this product?
Sure. Yeah. I just want to open by saying, we really are extremely passionate about our current project, what we're focused on, and we really think it is extremely important. Solution that really needs to exist, and not just here in the United States, but worldwide. And to clarify, what we're focused on right now is we're trying to bring to life an end-to-end verifiable blockchain-based voting system that's using open source code. So we're really trying to solve a problem in the election systems industry, which is a lack of transparency and verifiability when it comes to the voting methods that are being leveraged by election administrators here in the United States and again throughout the world. We really saw the need for this, or I kind of saw a need for this a long time ago. Back in my early days, actually when I was a teenager. Um, I've always been very, very interested in power structures, and when you grow up in school, they kind of implant this idea in your mind. You could be president one day, and you're always thinking about elections, and you're wondering, who's going to be the next president. And so when I got to about 18 years old, it was at 2000 when I turned 18, and it was the first election that I had a chance to vote in. And I'm not sure if your viewers are aware of kind of how the 2000 election went down, but it was between Al Gore and George W. Bush. It was ended up being one of the most controversial elections in U.S. history.
Yeah, I
Um,
blame Florida. It's Florida's fault.
yeah, it all came down to Florida and the hanging chads. But what it really exposed, at one point, there was a recount that was called for, by Gore's team, and they started going through the process, but the Supreme Court ended up stopping it along the way. But it dawned on me at that age that, wait a minute, we really don't know what's going on behind the scenes when it comes to elections. There really is a true lack of transparency when it comes to our elections. And it would really be great if there was a way to verify every vote that got cast in an election. At 18, I certainly didn't know how to solve that problem. But I always wanted to be an entrepreneur at heart. I started a lawn mowing business when I was 10 years old, sold candy out of my backpack to kids at school, all that kind of stuff. I didn't go into the entrepreneurship route right after college, but I graduated from Virginia Tech in 2004, spent some time in the digital marketing industry. And when I moved back to Blacksburg, my alma mater, Virginia, being at Blacksburg, Virginia, which is where my alma mater is at, Virginia Tech. When I moved back to Blacksburg to focus on Follow My Vote full time and really launch the startup, I learned about blockchain, and I learned about its applications for voting. And remember, this is in 2014. Your Bitcoin launched in 2009. So not really, people were just trying to start understand Bitcoin, let alone what blockchain really is, and there might be alternative use cases for that underlying technology. And when I came to understand that you could actually leverage that technology to build an end-to-end verifiable voting system, we immediately dropped everything and pursued that as our core focus. We were able to build an MVP, and what that allowed us to do, we basically proved that we had the technical chops to store voting data, from a poll onto the blockchain. But that was our first go around at building a blockchain-based application, at Follow My Vote. And we came to the realization along the way that although the backend is very secure, when you're leveraging blockchain to store data, and remember, blockchain is just a distributed ledger.
Right.
It's a distributed database, a decentralized database, and we're just talking about storing data in a database in an irreversible way. Blockchain is great, for financial transactions, for voting data and things like that, but it kept the data secure once you got the data to the blockchain. But we realized that there was still a security issue from developing applications and securely connecting the user from the front end to that back end. And we realized that just in general, no one has actually successfully figured out how to develop truly secure software. And we were pursuing voting as our use case for blockchain, and we couldn't settle for less than ideal. From a security standpoint, we really had to make sure that the front end piece of our application was just as secure as the back end. And we realized we can't really leverage modern tech, the technologies that exist today, the infrastructure, the current internet infrastructure, the web as it exists today is just simply not secure. So before we could go and build our voting system, our voting application, we needed to kind of rebuild the internet from the ground up. And that's how we got started on our current project, which is developing a decentralized application development platform.
Right.
Nathaniel can tell you all about that. It's a really exciting project. It's fascinating, but it's extremely important work, and it's going to lay the foundation for the voting system that we've designed to actually be developed and come to fruition. And yeah, just to clarify, um, we've designed an Indian verifiable voting system, but the system itself doesn't exist. Just want to make sure that your users are aware of that. We came up with these designs back in 2014. Um, they were so innovative and novel, we decided to pursue patenting those, just from a defensive standpoint.
Yeah.
But then really along the way, thought it was best really for the world to kind of open up that IP and just give it away as a gift to humanity and really let anyone who wishes to try to leverage those designs to have at it, because we really want this solution to exist, and we feel like it's necessary. And if other people can beat us to the finish line, then more power to them.
It's really awesome. I mean, more heads are better than three, I guess, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're here to solve a problem. I mean, we're
Yeah.
really not. If you take a look at a lot of the vendors in the voting industry, the majority of them are there to make a profit. They're there to provide solutions based on the current laws that exist, and they're not really pushing for change of any real kind. I mean, there may be a handful that would like to see some modern technology being adopted, but a lot of it's really all about kind of how to how to make money, and we're here to really solve a problem. And we just think as a byproduct of that, we'll make a lot of money along the way.
Right.
So,
So
just
the
wanted
big
you to know where our priorities lie.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Uh, Decentralize everything, have everything out in the world, have a lot of people help you. Big community, like the biggest community I'm on is crypto Twitter. So it's ideas are flying around all the time about blockchain. Um, so Nathaniel, you're the head go-to guy to creating this platform, right? Um,
Yeah,
Now the biggest concern with all this, like Adam said, is the security and the trust, like from the people, to actually use it. Um, Now, what are the biggest obstacles that you're running into or have ran into to kind of help solve this problem?
sure. So
I mean, that's kind of loaded. It's kind of a huge question.
there's there's kind of three main parts to this system and this project. There's security is an underlying and overarching through and through concern.
Yeah,
And you can't let that lapse anywhere or the system is pointless. But if you break it down, then there's two other concerns that kind of highlight as being of paramount importance as well. And one of those is usability, user friendliness. And the other is simplicity. So all three of these are just interrelated, and you really can't isolate one from another. A system that is too complex is insecure because no one understands it, no one understands how to use it or how to set it up or how to operate it, and mistakes get made
yeah,
and security lapses. At the same time, if it's too complex, people don't understand how to use it. And so all of these concerns, they really tie in with each other. So the internet, and I really want to step back a bit from internet
sure.
and say the web that we have today was not designed with the level of security in mind that we are looking for in an elections grade voting system. And so that's really what we're looking at is The technologies we have today have really two main strategies for getting an app to a user, and then once that app gets to the user, how does it communicate with its support infrastructure, the servers, other users, whatever it needs to talk to. And those solutions are the web. You open up your web browser, you type in facebook.com, um, it loads in your web browser, and you're off to the races. That's option one. Option two is an app store, um, especially on mobile devices, but they're making an appearance in desktop for a few years now. So those are kind of your two main strategies for getting software to the users. And both of those were designed to be secure to, if I can say, kind of your last generation security standards. And against those standards, they're brilliant. They're great. But blockchain is a new generation of security standard for back-end technologies, for those nodes operating in the server room. It's a new standard of security for those, and it secures against a new range of attacks and a new range of concerns that the old model didn't attempt to address. And so what we're seeing now is that blockchain brings the server room to a new level of security. But once we get to the user interface, when we get to the user devices, your smartphones, your tablets, your laptops, and desktop computers, there's really nothing to secure those to that same level.
Right.
And at the same time, the technologies that we have are actually very, very old. The web, especially, is a very old uh, compilation
Decades.
of technologies, and it goes back a very long way, decades old, yes.
Yeah.
And it's just been piled on these new layers and new tweaks and just new stuff that
Yeah.
piles on top of old stuff. And that puts a nice fresh face on it, but in terms of what's possible and how supported it all is, it becomes this very rickety kind of structure.
Mm.
And it becomes very difficult. I think we're all used to our apps glitching out randomly, and you just close it and open it again, um, or refresh the page, or whatever it be.
Right.
Um, and even our app stores, more and more these days, are deploying apps that are actually just built out of web.
Yeah.
It's the same development, the same technology stack. And so these glitchy applications are becoming more and more ubiquitous. And that's got a lot to do with the age of these technologies. And so it's creating this epidemic of glitchy apps that are kind of hard to use and they don't entirely make sense. Um, and so we need to refresh on both the technology and how it works front, but also how you're using it, and make the apps so that they're more approachable and understandable to humans. And both of those are very important concerns when we're talking about a voting system, because if it's glitchy and it does the wrong thing, that's not okay. But at the same time, if you just can't figure out how it's supposed to work and you're just trying stuff and oops, you weren't supposed to hit that button, now it's
Right.
submitted, you can't change it, or whatever it be, that's not okay either. And so we need to push forward on both the technology front, but also the design and the usability front,
Right.
the understandability front. And so that's some of the main challenges that we're looking at a very high level perspective.
I never thought as the internet as like a really rickety table and like having it. about to fall over from all these stuff like being piled up on it. So that was a very good analogy.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's extremely vulnerable. I mean, you have huge financial institutions paying billions of dollars to try to secure their, their websites and their applications. And without fail, there are still breaches. I mean, there are all sorts of security breaches with huge companies. And Facebook, for instance, it got hacked within the last couple of years. I mean, even these behemoth companies with deep, bottomless pockets are still having trouble securing their infrastructure, and it's because of the way they chose to build it. You
Right.
know, you, using the technologies that they did. So the reality is we can do better. And I think Nathaniel just explained a lot of the challenges that we're currently facing with our project. Um, but the challenge, I think, generally with voting, it's been a big education process to not only for us, but to try to educate the people
Yeah.
of the United States, the people of the world at large,
Yeah.
of of the possibilities.
Yeah.
What is possible leveraging modern technology. And it's also been a challenge to point out all the existing vulnerabilities with our current voting methods. I mean, we have military overseas voters voting by email. It's a completely insecure way to vote. That's a huge problem. You could go through every single voting method, and there are security vulnerabilities. We don't even have time to get into it, but I can pick apart every single voting method and tell you how that could be hacked or manipulated in some way. And the people need to really be aware of that, and that technology is not to be anything. New technology is nothing to be scared of. It's really here to kind of save us. We need to be embracing this new technology and really trying to innovate and welcome this with open arms and solve this problems. And we're really taking a institutional, almost like lab type approach to this. I mean, we're not looking for big time investment capital. I mean, we just secured a grant,
Great.
to develop our decentralized application development platform. And we're taking a slow and steady approach to making sure that we do this right. We're doing it in an open source way. We're going to share our journey and allow people to come along with us. And you know, I got to give a lot of credit to Nathaniel. I mean, he's inventing stuff, on a daily basis. He's figuring this stuff out. Um, and when there's a will, there's a way. And I think we're really on the right track, and it's just a matter of time before we figure it all out. And yeah, so we definitely encourage you and your viewers to continue to follow us at followmyvote.com.
Absolutely. Now, Nathaniel, you were saying about accessibility and things like that. So there's a lot of people out in the, well, not just in the world, but in the United States that don't use technology. And uh, for example, like my grandparents, they don't even have cell phones or a computer. They have to go to the library and email us. Uh, but I mean, they have a landline, which is nice. But there's a lot of people like that in the United States that just won't, you know, get technology. And so, if we want to adapt and adopt this process, like how I know this is like a different, like changing the process and changing how people think, and this is probably going to take a lot of time. But if there are still people in and like Follow My Vote is doing great and are um, in the voting process and people are using it, how can we help those people to use it? And or is there a different way, like they can do something offline, or does everything have to be online? Does that make
Right.
sense?
Right. So there's a couple of different angles to that we are building our system to factor in. So One angle is flexibility and interoperability. We want the system to be very flexible to its users' needs. And so, from that angle, we would say, some people, they're just going to prefer the old ways of doing things. And that's okay. The biggest problem with paper voting is that it doesn't scale. That's the biggest problem with it. We're trying to put everyone through that one voting system, that one strategy, and it's okay for hundreds, thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people voting. But when we're talking about many millions, it just doesn't do it.
Right.
It's too much paper
Yeah.
and it doesn't scale that far. And actually, and when you try to scale it, you're really stretching the system. It's bursting at the seams, and leaks start happening, and things that needed to be checked didn't get checked, and everyone's stressing out, and mistakes happen.
Well, this
And
is why,
so,
like, paper voting is by the state, like, each
right,
state has its own process, and each county has its own process, and
right.
each one
But
city has their own process. Like,
most of them are really struggling to keep up with the scale within their state, within their precinct.
yeah,
And so the biggest problem with that system is that it doesn't scale as far as we're trying to push it. And so actually one of the biggest solutions for that system is let everyone who would rather do something online do it.
mhm,
But let the people who would rather stick to paper and keep that system afloat for them, because at that point it's easy.
yeah,
It's not an onerous or a difficult system. It's actually really simple. And it could be cheap. It could be highly cost effective, but not when you're trying to push it faster or further, bigger than it's really capable of going. So that's one angle, is just let the old system excel at what it excels at, but then offer a new alternative. And so then the other side of this that we look at is ex- extreme simplicity of the technology so that you can adapt it to just about any specific need or circumstance very easily. And so that's where, if you keep the software small, compact, and understandable, then you can make all of these tweaks that adapt it to a specific need. So if we're talking about accessibility concerns, we need to support colorblind people or people who are hard of hearing. Um, we can adjust the software to meet those needs and to factor in all of the necessary concerns, and it's really just a UI problem. Um, that's one of the benefits of keeping everything simple. And of course, that's then why our technological basis is so large. We're not talking about just building a voting system, we're talking about building an entire application platform,
yeah,
because the voting system as an app needs to be incredibly simple. And it needs to be based on technologies that are incredibly robust. And so, to attain that goal, we need that platform has to be used for other things. Other people have to care about it. Other sectors, other domains have to care about it. And they have to be using it too, so that it becomes robust and durable for all of them. And it's not just this one application that's trying to shore it up for itself, because that doesn't work. And when you've done that and you've made all of those common concerns robust components of an underlying infrastructure, and then now your app sits on top of that, it's really simple, it's really small. And now it's very flexible and it's easy to target specifically, whether it's to the specific rules of different precincts and jurisdictions, or whether it's to the specific needs of different kinds of people.
Just to piggyback on what Nathaniel just said, I mean, that's a perfect, flexibility. That's a perfect way to describe, or not to describe, the existing situation like our current situation when it comes to elections. We, for the most part, you have seen an utter lack of innovation in the election systems industry for decades. We're using the same voting methods, the same technology. Nothing's been updated, and it's inferior technology at this point. But we've kind of backed ourselves into a corner because there are so much legislation and rules that govern what type of voting methods and systems can be used in elections and what can't. We're working on stuff so cutting edge, there aren't rules that exist yet for it. I'm actually meeting with industry professionals and people all throughout the industry, and we're coming up with and developing our own certification standards for the new systems that are going to be rolling out. And we'll have to work with legislators and officials to get those certification standards integrated into everything else that exists. So I mean, we're literally paving, and we have to pave the way for our own technology to one day be adopted. Because at this point, in my experience, government officials are scared of blockchain. They don't like the word blockchain because they don't understand blockchain. It's complete. They just don't know about. They don't know what blockchain is, and it's become a dirty word almost in blockchain. And it's like you can't even in the government circles, you can't even use the word blockchain. Now it's distributed ledger. Distributed ledger is much more palatable, and so that's now the common phrasing that people are going with, because it's more approachable and people are actually starting to say, okay, well, wait a minute. I understand what a ledger is. I kind of understand what distributed is. Well, let me start to look into this. Let me start to understand this, and there are a few people that are starting to get it and starting to wake up. And those are the champions that you're seeing right now, few and far between, that are saying, hey guys, this has some merit. Let's actually do this, but so it's a slow waking up, of people within the tech community and just people within society that we might have some better options not too far ahead in the future. And what we really need to get this technology adopted is demand. We need the public to demand it.
Yeah.
We need the public to say, hey, I want to vote securely from my smartphone. Please, government, make it so. Work with the technology vendors that can make it possible, because that's what I want. And if we can get that from the people, this solution will be here much sooner.
I mean, I think all they have to do is just understand the benefits of.
Write your elected official. Write
Yeah.
your congressman. Write your senator. Tell them
Right.
you want it in your state. It's
Right.
that simple.
I mean, the easiest benefit to, besides a mail-in ballot, like I don't have to go to a polling place. I could just do it on my phone or iPad or computer. Log into my profile, and use my private access key and do a vote.
And it could all be that simple. And just, you said private access key, so you kind of triggered. I want to circle back to what I talked about earlier in our designs. So we didn't just, so what we invented, what was incorporated, you can look these designs up on patents.google.com. Just search for "follow my vote" in quotation marks, and our patent application will pop up. And you'll see that we invented what we refer to as an anonymous voting key registration protocol.
Wow.
So to clarify for you and your viewers, what that actually means is that we've created a way where someone can use their, in theory, once the system exists, use their smartphone to access this voting application, to have their identity verified, to make sure that you're an eligible voter that has the authority to vote in an election, and then be issued a ballot in an anonymous way, so that when you cast your vote, in the election, you can actually follow your vote into the ballot box and confirm with your own eyes that your vote was cast as intended and counted as cast. And the ideally, we'd like to be able to expose the entire ballot box and allow people to individually verify every single vote that is stored in the ballot box. And so essentially, anyone could independently verify or audit the results of an election.
I mean,
So,
you wouldn't be able to do that by like the whole country, right? Like you're not going to have a centralized system for like a national election. Like are we like
so
changing the whole
to
system is going to
so
be
to your point, so to your point, where so to your point, well, one thing I should say is we're not pushing for a complete overhaul of the election systems industry and pushing everyone to vote this way. What Nathaniel mentioned earlier was that we would want to provide an alternative option
yeah.
and allow people to use that. Once people, the people that the brave souls that aren't afraid of technology, right? They're going to be willing to try it out and see how it goes. And once they experience it and are reassured that it was secure and everything happened as it should, they'll go and tell their friends, and next time maybe a few more people will vote that way, and a few more people will vote, and you'll start to see people transition to that. And there may always be that paper-based ballot option, but there'll be fewer and fewer and fewer people because at the end of the day, it's just not convenient. Those paper ballots cost money. You have to go to a centralized polling location on a Tuesday and take time off of work, to vote. It shouldn't have to be that way. So again, we want to provide that option, and we've so that's really, I wanted to make sure that you and your viewers understood that's kind of what we were doing here, is we wanted to provide that second option. But you asked me a specific question, and I wanted to get to that too. What was your last question? Um,
You're not going to centralize the whole national.
right. So to your point, like elections happen based on jurisdiction, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, county registrars, right? They're given a budget to conduct their election within their county, and they have to. That's all they get, right? They have to try to spread those funds as far as they can to provide the best and as many voting methods to their constituents as possible. That's their literal job, is to make voting accessible as possible to their constituents. And if we can make it so accessible that you can get it on your smartphone, that should be a win, right? So I mean, so all of our registrars should be kind of looking at that as one day being a goal, to provide even greater accessibility to the polls on election day. So I think election administrators should really welcome this solution with open arms. But to your point, they're going to be leveraging the system and accepting ballots for people that are registered to vote in their particular jurisdiction.
Right.
And that will be the data contained in their ballot box, for instance. Yeah. Right. And there are ways that you can, tally the votes in that box, but also aggregate those vote totals with other ballot boxes that have been tallied and things like that. But the idea, what we would love to see one day is just everyone keeps the blockchain ballot box is secure. Yeah. So why not let people peek into it? It's secure, accurate, anonymous voting data. Yeah. Why not let people see the truth? It's just truth. It's just an accurate representation of how people voted. So we'd like to let anyone audit it, but there are laws governing who can access voting data and at what time and to what extent. And it will probably take a long time to work with legislators to change those laws. And you may meet so much resistance that just certain laws,
right.
Are just not going to budge, unless there's a march on Washington or something like that, But
So I think the biggest problem right now is actual people like having the motivation to actually vote. Uh, except like this last election, we had a huge turnout, and like people were saying that's fake, right? So,
say that
um,
again.
like the biggest, the last election that we had the biggest turnout, and people were saying that it was fake. Like all those numbers, like we don't have that many people in the United States. It's like, well, maybe we do, and they actually voted for Biden, and it wasn't faked. But I think getting people to actually register to vote because we don't have like a system. We don't have an auto register. As soon as you turn 18, you don't get auto registered to go vote. You have to go manually do it. So it's the motivation to actually like tell that person like, go register, download this application, vote in your district. I think that's going to be the biggest uh, difficulty. I mean,
To
I
your,
don't.
to your point, I think voter apathy is at an all-time high. I think we've gotten to a sad but true state of affairs in the United States. Is we've gotten to a point, I think, where a lot of people, and perhaps even the majority of people, may feel at the end of the day that their vote doesn't really matter. Because it is somewhat of a black box. You put your little paper ballot into the machine, and you don't get to see how the ballots are counted, what the vote totals are,
Right,
how they're aggregated behind the scenes. I mean, you don't really know if your vote really counted or not.
right.
And if we were to move to, or at least provide additional options for more verifiable means of voting, I think that would make make it real to people again and say, look, my vote actually does count because I can count it. I could literally go to the ballot box and count it myself. I can see that it was stored there and it's being counted. Okay, this matters. My voice actually matters. My voice is being heard.
Yeah,
In this election, and so I think the solution has to be there. The confidence in the systems have to be reinstalled. Reinforced by the solution, and then from there, I think you're going to see voting participation reach all-time highs.
I kind of want to go back on privacy for the user, um, and so people do have to register, and uh, how do we get verified that we are who we are? Is there a way, or like, will somebody find a way to vote twice, or make up a name, and vote in the system? So I guess those are the two things that are concerning for most people. Is like, I have voter fraud. People are voting on dead people's ballots. Or at least some people say that. Um, but how does this solve that?
Nathaniel, it's all you, buddy.
So there's a few different intermingling issues in that discussion. Kind of the big one that's central to the issue is identity verification. Um, when we have a registration in the system coming in and saying, I'm authenticating to the system as Joe Schmo, here's my address, here, driver's license number, whatever it be, the voter registration data. How do we verify that it's really Joe on the other side of this electronic connection? And our system has always prioritized working no matter how that happens, because there are we observe and we assume that there are ways to do that, but we are not experts in that particular domain. um, ID verification is a fundamentally human space problem. It deals with humans and these organic beings. It's not something that happens in the computer. And so that part of the process, we design our system to be as flexible as possible to work with whatever requirements and standards and solutions are deemed appropriate by a given customer.
Mm,
Customer being a voting precinct, a specific jurisdiction. So That's not, ID verification isn't really part of our system. So how exactly that gets done, we kind of say hands off of it. But given that it can be done any way you want to do it, we can work with it. Um, and then other issues like voting twice or um, voting as a dead person and things like that. Um, those have, on one hand, voting as dead people, for instance, has a lot to do with just cleaning up the rolls of voters. So you have an issue there, but you can kind of skip that to some extent by just beefing up the ID verification process. If you make it so that somebody has to reasonably demonstrate that they actually are the person they're claiming to register as, then it becomes much more difficult to register as the dead guy because
Yeah.
you don't look like him, you don't know anything about him, um, or maybe you do, but again, however you want to address all of those issues in the identity verification, you can. Our system then, from that point, makes it so that the entire system is secured from a theoretical information security standpoint, an analyzable and even provable security standpoint, to the extent that there's no way mathematically to vote twice with only one registration. You just can't. And so we focus on the information security side of things, but the human aspect of it, admittedly, we do stay a little bit hands off on.
Yeah.
Will there be a person on the back end, like from the government, like in their jurisdictions, to like just like a paper ballot? You check the signature and you check their ID in the system, like it matches. Okay, cool, pass it on.
So you said
Yeah.
like you watched our some of our YouTube videos,
Some of
right?
them, yeah, yeah,
So we have a really good user experience demo video that we've posted on YouTube that takes you through a possible scenario in a possible way
yeah,
in which people could have their identities verified. When we originally thought of, okay, of course, before you allow someone to vote, you have to verify that they're a real person and that they're eligible to vote, right? So to not rock the boat too much, we just looked at how did that take place in our current states at the centralized polling location on election day, right? And so at the centralized polling location, you walk in and you give them your driver's license. You say, okay, I'm here to vote. And so they take your driver's license, they look at it, and they cross-reference that with the voter registration list. They check you off, and then they give you your appropriate ballot based on your address, like where you actually live. And so we designed a user experience to showcase one way in which that process could be handled, and we mirrored that process. So if you watch one of our user experience demos, you'll see me. I think I was the one who created the video. I take a picture of myself, using I'm working on my laptop. I take your picture of myself, and I submit that to the system. I take a picture of the front and back of my ID card, and what could happen from there is that information is sent to just like it is a volunteer poll worker, right? They could be sitting behind their computer at that same centralized polling location and receive my identity information being submitted
yeah,
to their system. They could pull up the app and say, okay, we got an electronic voter coming in. They could do the exact same thing on their computer that they would do if I was standing there with an ID in front of them.
yeah,
They could go through the same process checks and then certify and add a transaction to the blockchain that certifies I am eligible to vote in this election and I should get this particular ballot type. And then from there, our system it starts to institute that anonymous voting key registration protocol, which will anonymously give you your ballot, and then you can vote from there. Does that make sense?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Okay, so
So
that's just one. Yeah, it's just one way it could work. The concept is the system should be built in a way that you can receive publicly identifiable, or I'm sorry, personally identifiable information, right? And that personally identifiable information is used to validate your identity, and that can be done automatically by a computer. But we would highly recommend there be a human being involved in the process,
yeah,
just to have those checks and balances.
and hopefully it won't take 2 weeks to count votes. Then all they have to do is just verify the person,
Yeah, I mean
and it's over.
the act of verifying your identity, especially if there's a human
Yeah,
identity verifier involved in the process, you may take anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes. And on election day, that might not be feasible to expect millions of people to go through that process. It just might not be possible. So we would recommend in those type of scenarios, just like you can go to your centralized polling location like a month in advance and vote early if you want. Just open up that registration period 30 days before an election, allow people to register, and then get everybody in and to the step where they're just ready to vote by the time election day comes around. And when election day hits, everyone's already registered, they're verified in the system, and they just vote.
yeah,
And it can all happen the same day. Where the blockchain where it's at today, I mean, there are protocols out there that can process thousands of transactions per second. So the technology is there. We just need to harness it in the right way to build the type of solution we're talking about.
yeah. I wanted to talk about politicians, but we're already coming up on an hour, and I think that could be a whole video on itself. Like your experiences with them, their biggest concerns, and I know like everybody knows that there's a lot of boomers out there, and they sometimes just don't get it. Um, but I know there are a lot of politicians out there right now that are excited for this technology. Um, have you guys talked to any excited politicians? I don't know if you want to name drop or anything right like that, but
Well, one person I'd love to speak with is Jared Polis. I haven't connected with him yet, but both Will and I are in Colorado, and Jared Polis is on a mission to make Colorado the first fully digital state in the country, and he's very open to the idea of blockchain-based voting. It's just no one's figured out how to do it securely yet, and so that's the challenge, and we're up for that challenge. We have talked to people involved in the election systems industry in Virginia. I've actually got invited to the governor's mansion when Terry McAuliffe was in office. He was the governor there of Virginia, and I got a chance to meet him and speak to him, at his holiday party. And I talked to him briefly about our startup and what we were, what we were striving to achieve. And I said, what's the likelihood of us getting this implemented here in Virginia? And he said, forget about it. That Virginia, he said
like no way.
just straight up, forget about
I
it.
just wanted to have you for dinner, whatever.
And it wasn't him. It was because he said, it's just too political. It's a too political. Voting is a very political issue, and the Republicans and the Democrats are both very, very passionate about voting and about the methods that are currently in use. And you have to remember too, like everyone who's in the elected office right now got elected by the current systems. If you talk about implementing a new system, a different system that works in a different way, you might jeopardize their chance of getting reelected. So it's a little scary to elected officials to welcome a new way of voting. Everybody is really looking out to protect themselves at the end of the day. It's kind of human nature. But
That could be a whole topic too. Is what the true nature of politicians' mind and like the changing the system and like giving more
yeah,
access and
it,
um, stuff like that. So
yeah, we should probably set up a whole separate podcast because I could talk on and on about conversations in my experience. I've talked with members of the the Republican Party, the Democratic Party, the Libertarian Party, they all have positive things and negative things to say about it. They have their pros and cons. You know,
Yeah.
it's a bit of a double-edged sword, you
Yeah.
know, for everyone, depending on how you look at it. And I can explain that, you know, in greater detail. We've also talked with politicians out in California. You know, we actually went out in 2014. We were invited out by the California Association of Voting Officials. Cami Foote, who was president of the California Association of Voting Officials at the time, invited us out. We hosted an event, and the Secretary of State sent someone. Alex Padilla was the Secretary of State at the time, and he sent someone from their offices. And we had a really, we put on a demo for them, our user experience demo, and had a really in-depth conversation with that individual. And it was a fascinating conversation. Happy to you know, take you through that, you know, as well at a later time. We even talked to government officials abroad that have been just enamored with our designs and wanted to learn more about our approach as they were considering, you know, implementing something similar in their country.
You went international.
Yeah, I was actually the Netherlands reached out to us. You know,
Awesome.
we talked to the Ministry of Interior Affairs in the Netherlands. Nathaniel and I had I mean, this is legit as you can get. You know, we're there. They're like the CIO, the CTO, and we're taking them through our protocol and telling them how it works, and they're just blown away.
Yeah.
And at the end of the call, they're just like, "Wow, that's a great design," and that's kind of where the conversation ended. You know, we followed up a few times, you know, but I'd be interested to see if they're starting to leverage, you know, some of our ideas in their systems that they're using. Yeah, that's just one example. You know, so people are Canada has expressed interest. You know, at a conference that we went to. So I mean, there are a lot of eyes on what we're doing, and we've been at this, you know, for 7 years now. You know, and we're serious about it. You know, we're not rushing anything. You know, this has to be done the right way, and so I think people are taking note of the approach and are really getting behind what we're doing.
So a couple more questions. I don't want to keep you guys too much longer, but um, how much longer do you think? And I mean, I don't want to rush you. You guys want to do it right. um,
This you're about to ask, you know, the nightmare question.
yeah, the nightmare question. I'm like your overseeing boss, like your silent partner boss. Like,
Yeah,
when's it gonna get done? You
right.
know? I mean, like, take your time, like, but estimated, how long? If this is again a loaded question because you can't foresee problems, you can't like see anything like that. But how long do you think this will take to build? I mean, you want to rebuild the internet,
So
so yeah, how long?
so I'm definitely gonna have to defer to Nathaniel on it, and whatever time he says, just double it.
I'll triple it for you, Nathaniel.
Yeah, triple it. We need some padding there because you never know. Like I said, he's inventing stuff on a daily basis, and you know, he runs into issues and problems, and
Yeah,
just I got to figure that out,
yeah.
and you know, and we find a way through. But Nathaniel, go ahead.
So, the only real answer to that is it'll take as long as it takes. Um, but I can narrow it down a little bit. All of the designs that go into this system, I'm a very technical mind, and I'm an implementer. I build things. I'm a designer. I'm an architect. I kind of run the gamut of how does a system come into being? There's the idea, the dream, what is it for? And then the what is it made of? And then the how does it come to be? And all of the designs that I've come up with, some of them are pretty far reaching. Some of them are really
They're just out there.
they're really challenging what we think is possible in the same way as blockchain itself did. I remember when I was in school, in grad school, I'd heard of Bitcoin, but I hadn't looked into how it worked. And I remember it was around that time I was looking into first learning about how the technology worked and what it did, what made it technologically interesting. And I was just flabbergasted. That's not possible. Like, this changes everything. If you can do that, it just completely upsets all the tables. It changes all the rules about what's possible in computing. And that was really one of those influential moments for me is when I realized what blockchain did, what it changed. And that's when I decided, okay, that's what I'm going to do. Um, so in that same way, I'm looking to change a lot of what is thought to be possible and how development in general is thought to work. But I'm an implementer, and at the end of the day, I have to be able to build it.
Yeah.
I may get help, I may get more people on board, I may get more hands on and more people on deck who are building this with me, but I have to be able to build it, because if
Mhm.
I can't build it, I can't get someone else to either.
Yeah.
And so everything that I have designed in this system, from the deepest, most fundamental layers up to the final finishing touches on the app, all of that is possible. This isn't pie in the sky nonsense. These are ideas that can be made out of silicon. And so that kind of cuts down on the timeline a bit. We're not talking about, oh, well, a project this magnificent will take decades. No, that's not going to work. That's not useful, and frankly, you probably haven't thought it through well enough to actually say that it can work. So we're talking on the scale of years, depending, of course, on, again, how much traction the project gains. More competent people who understand, people who can really grasp the full scope of what we're attempting and the vision, and have the ability to work on it. The more of those we get, the faster it goes. And at the same time, just having more kind of low level implementation talent, it also speeds things up, not as much. So it could be accelerated in the right circumstances
You don't want to rush it.
to
Yeah.
a year, maybe. But that would be kind of, I think,
You won't sleep.
it's improbable that we'll find that kind of help. Um, but we're talking about a project that is on the scale of years, um, not decades, not centuries, um, but years.
Awesome.
And it all
Hey,
depends on just how many people jump on board, competent people, and are willing to help us out. And Chris, that's where you come in, helping us spread
yeah,
the
man.
word.
How many other blockchain technology companies or blockchain voting companies out there are working on the same thing
Well,
that you know of?
I would say that the main really competitor, the horse that's actually out there doing things and conducting elections using blockchain-based voting software is Votes, um, VOATZ. Um, we're actually both a part of the Government Blockchain Association's voting working group, and we've been collaborating together and working on these certification standards that I mentioned earlier in the podcast.
Mhm.
So we're really trying to, we welcome collaboration, friendly competition. We want to bring the greatest minds together and do a kind of a mind meld and help each other get better. And so we're trying to foster this spirit of really collaboration and partnership of the voting companies that exist in the space. And we're starting to see more and more people show up to these meetings. But there's really only, I mean, it's us and votes, as far as I know, that are making real waves, and getting attention for their projects. Votes is actually out there conducting elections. We're kind of, we're pre-product. We're still working on the product. They chose to leverage some different technologies kind of than we would, and are using a different design than necessarily we would. But I know they're storing their voting data on a blockchain. So that's one thing we have in common with them. We haven't really publicly endorsed each other's projects or anything like that. But like I said, we're always open to friendly competition, and I would consider them our main competitor.
That's awesome. I mean, collaboration is key. So my background is in photography and videography, and when you guys have this product ready to go, um, not I shouldn't really say product. I should say, uh, you know, really game changer of a system. When you have a beta ready to go, I would love to document it and kind of challenge you guys, uh, and have people try to hack it, and try to see if we can break the system. That's also in my background, is like I'm also in advertising as well, and so I check out websites, and my main job is to break the website. If I'm a regular user, I want to break it, and like if I break it, then a regular user is going to break it. So if we attempt and break your system and prove that it's working, and show that to people, that's going to be a huge headway for you guys. So I would love to challenge you guys when you finish the system. Have me film an election, either high school or corporate or an HOA, and try to invite hackers to it, to try to break it. What do you think?
Bring it on, man. We would love it. I mean, that's the goal. Is, I mean, I could see us, creating a whole bug bounty program, and I mean, really challenging hackers from all over the world. Back in 2016, when I was literally traveling all over the world to share these ideas and make people aware of our project. Um, One of my goals was to try to recruit hackers. I went to, like, the Czech Republic at one point and was put in touch with one of the best hackers they had. And, I think I got his information. I'm not sure. I'm sure I could track him down. But, we want to encourage, the best hackers from all corners of the earth to try to take down our system. Like, we're going to put it through rigorous testing at every step of the way before it's ever used in, a prime time election, event, anything that matters, anything where action will be taken as a result of the outcome of the election. That's when it's real. And, before we get to that point, we have to make sure that the system has been tested through and through. And, you can't limit that to just people that you want. You have to let the best and the brightest try to take it down, and that's what we plan to do. And so, yeah, if you think you have the technical chops or know anybody that does, let's start building a list. Let's build a contact list, and as soon as we're ready, I'll put an email blast out, and we'll go from there.
That makes me so happy. I can't wait to
Yeah,
hack it. I'm not a hacker, but
yeah.
I can find some people. I got some contacts.
Well, and keep in mind too, it's all going to be open source, right? So you can Yeah,
Don't
bring it
you worry,
on.
Nathaniel. I'm a
Yeah,
coming.
yeah.
That's
Bring it
awesome. Thanks,
on.
guys. I really appreciate you guys jumping on, and I
Yeah.
know there's many questions that we didn't even get to. I would love to have you guys on again. Will, sorry.
Totally fine.
um, you did a great job. Super proud of you for helping me put this together.
Of course.
But
You're
yeah,
like herding cats.
yeah, would love to talk to you guys more. Do you guys have any last words for my viewers or anything like that? You don't have to, and there's only like 17 of them, so it's okay.
Check us out at followmyvote.com. We have a YouTube channel with lots of videos. You can learn about what we're doing. We got stuff on GitHub. We have a dev challenge for people who want to come and join Nathan in
Nathaniel?
coding this project. Nathaniel, thank you, Adam. Uh, who want to join Nathaniel and help us build this system. So check us out, followmyvote.com.
Is that it? That's it.
Yeah, that's it. He
That's
took the
it.
word. He took the words from my mouth. I was just going to do a shameless plug. I appreciate it. It's been a
Great, guys.
great. It's been a pleasure talking with you today, and I really appreciate the opportunity. And yes, we're happy to come back on anytime and chat with you.
Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about a lot of things. It's gonna be great. We're gonna talk about politics and more security things, the history of voting, um, lots of stuff. So can't wait to put some more content out for you guys.
Fantastic. Well, thanks,
All right,
Chris.
Cool.
appreciate
Appreciate
it.
it.
All right, peace out.
Thanks everyone for watching. Please like and subscribe if you like what you saw and heard. I would really appreciate it. I have so many ideas for future videos with these guys, and or other people, uh, especially about the history of voting, the absolute beginning of the process in the United States, the paper cost now for a district to have the system going. Um, does ranked choice voting work for the system? And other ideas. So if you like what you saw and heard, like and subscribe. And I can't wait to show you guys the future videos. Thanks.